people talk about the law of attraction, which is absolutely fantastic and totally something that I work with in my life. But it's also about our thinking, our feeling, the state we're creating within us, and then the way that we're interacting with the external world as human projectors. So our thoughts, our feelings, the energetic movement in our body, all of that is going out through this lens of our aura and then projecting out into our external world.
Welcome to Passion Struck. Hi, I'm your host, John R. Miles, and on the show, we decipher the secrets, tips, and guidance of the world's most inspiring people and turn their wisdom into practical advice for you and those around you. Our mission is to help you unlock the power of intentionality so that you can become the best version of yourself. If you're new to the show, I offer advice and answer listener questions on Fridays. We have long-form interviews the rest of the week with guests ranging from astronauts to authors, CEOs, creators, innovators, scientists, military leaders, visionaries, and athletes. Now, let's go out there and become Passion Struck.
Amy Leigh Mercree is a best-selling author of 10 books, including A Little Bit of Chakras, A Little Bit of Meditation, A Little Bit of Mindfulness, Essential Oils Handbook, and the Mood Book. Crystals, Oils, and Rituals to Elevate Your Spirit. She is an international speaker and holistic health expert. Mercy also teaches several classes called Meet Your Guides, Bestseller Bootcamp, and Goddess Shamanism. Yeah. She has been featured in Glamour Magazine, Women's Health Magazine, Shape, The Huffington Post, Your Tango, Soul and Spirit Magazine, Mind Body Green, CBS, NBC, Hello Giggles, oh my goodness, Reader's Digest, Bustle, Country Living, Oprah.com, and many more. Please follow her on her socials at Amy Leigh Mercree. Next we have John Miles, who is our moderator today, former Navy officer and Chief Info Officer for Dell. John got immersed in the safety of human flourishing, the #1 alternative health podcast, which includes 75+ million downloads. He's the author of Passion Struck and has been awarded the Stevie Gold for Best Business Book in the World. He also has a children's book called You Matter Luma that comes out February 2026. Thank you both for being here, and thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tina.
Thank you. And Amy, thank you for driving up from up south. Amy was in the car for about 3 hours coming up here today. I really appreciate her making the drive. And for those of you who are perhaps not familiar with my podcast, I had Amy on in episode 475, which I just hit 660, so that was probably 18 months ago. And we actually discussed this book, so we're going to expand on that today. But I first kind of wanted to ask the room, when you come into a room like this and you see each other and the vibe of the room, do you all feel any energy presence amongst yourselves? Amy, when you come into a room like this, given this is what you study and practice, what kind of energy do you feel?
So when I come into any space with a lot of people, I tend to seal up my energy field, which I can teach you all how to do, only because there's crowds. Now, all of you, of course, have fantastic energy. You're here to talk to us. You've come in because you may have listened to Passion Struck, the podcast, which is fantastic. But when I come into a space with a lot of people, the first thing I like to do is just have a little bubble around me and then make sure I'm coming in with the spirit of joy. So I'm raising frequency. And as somebody who's been intuitive for a lot of my life, I tend to turn down the volume on the crowds. But when we're in a room like this, I get to relax and open up and talk to all of you who are here to talk to us about common things that we're interested in.
Yeah, so what really interested me to Amy's work is I am fortunate enough that I get to see the early releases from all the major publications or publishers of what's coming out. And Hay House happens to be one of my favorite, who now publishes your books. And
Yes.
I happened to see your book coming out, but what really caught my eye was that you combined physics with spiritual practices, and I wanted to kind of understand
Yes.
what got you interested in that diverse mix.
I've always been a science nerd. I've always been very into science, physics, all of that, even as a child. So as a child, I was a member of the astronomy book club and all kinds of things like that. So I was always interested in that. And then in 6th grade, we did a unit called Matter, Matter Everywhere that was about atoms and what they're made of, protons, neutrons, electrons. And I was hooked. So even from a young age, I looked at things in this way. Over time, I trained with my late medicine teacher. I steeped myself in a lot of different traditions while I was in college. And then as I got the opportunity to be a writer, I got to combine that with scientific knowledge. Like, as later when we talk about auras, we'll get to talk about the actual science of auras. But it's been an interest almost lifelong of mine.
Yeah, and what led you to writing this book now? I mean, as the introduction just covered, I mean, you've studied and written about mindfulness, you've talked about crystals, yes. You've talked about chakras. Why auras now?
So Aura Alchemy is my 18th book, and it was a study in the work that I do as a medical intuitive, where I do combine the science of particle physics, quantum mechanics, with, you know, spirituality, clairvoyance, the systems of the body. So the aura is an extension of the body's energy system. So to write a book about that, it's kind of a gateway into how do we clean it, clear it, fill it with high vibrational energy. What do all these colors mean that people discuss? It was a really great entry point to get into the medical intuitive energetic side of things.
And you start out the book by telling a story about your brother.
Yes.
And you talk about natural sparkles.
Yes.
Yeah, I was hoping, because I think that sets up the whole book, you could talk about that experience.
I love it. And it'll be fun to tell my brother I got to talk about it too. So when we were little, we had this area next to our house that we called the stream. And my brother was younger. So for those of you who have younger siblings, in the early years, if you're the older sibling, you maybe get to direct the little brother. As they get older, they can pick you up, and it's a different story. But when we were kids, we would make this thing called the stream, and we happened to just have a yard that was sloping in a pretty suburban area. And it was dirt because my dad hadn't filled the grass in for a long time. It was kind of on the side. This was back before the days of water conservation. It was up north, so it wasn't an issue. And we would turn on the hose, except there was just a faucet, and water would come out. And so we would manicure it into all these different tributaries and streams. We put the G.I. Joes and the Star Wars figures there. And through all of that time, it was a multi-year process. Our cousins did that with us. Our neighborhood friends everybody came over and made the stream, like fall, summer, spring, always. The winter, the spring, the stream was closed down. But during all of that time, I was looking at what I thought of as nature sparkles. And so I would see, you know, sparkles, and they would be moving with the stream, they would be around the stream, and then as it got closer to dusk, I would see more, and then I would even see what now we would call the aura or electromagnetic field of the tree line as we got closer to dusk, which is a great time to see all of that. Usually I would know to start looking for my friends, the trees. I would just think it was their glow, close to the time when my mom would tell us to come in for dinner. So it was kind of an early introduction, and for a long time I just assumed everybody saw that, and I actually think a lot of people do. I've now over the years shown many friends, family members, you know, anybody I'm out in nature with, especially when you're hiking and you're in a less urban area, you can often see those sparkles if you kind of know how to unfocus your eyes and look for them. So it was something that I kind of thought everybody saw. It took me a while to realize they didn't. But that was, again, another point that was illustrative of me wondering, what were things made of? What were these? So that's what was very exciting when I started to learn about science. And then, of course, as I was an adult, you know, really a voracious reader, being able to sort of create ideas around what these things might be. And then what a privilege, as John knows, when we get to write books and share our ideas.
No, it's awesome. And
Yeah.
well, I'm not, for those who haven't listened to the podcast, I have a lot of different guests on, and I've been fortunate to have a number of astronauts. I think I'm up to 8 or 9 now, and I have 2 or 3 astronauts who are very close friends of mine, including a Naval Academy classmate of mine and another who was my physics instructor. But you have an astronaut story, I understand.
I do.
So you took this concept of sparkles to outer space. And,
I did.
And not just with any astronaut, but with John Glenn. I understand when you were like 5th or 6th grade,
Yes.
you actually reached out to him because you had heard he had seen sparkles in space.
I saw the movie The Right Stuff. If any of you have seen it, it's a great movie. And they showed when he was in Friendship 7, you know, he was in space, they depicted his account of all of these sparkles around the capsule. He was, you know, in the early space program, for those who, you know, didn't see the movie or read, there's a book too. I think I read the book as well. So I think it was, 5th or 6th grade. And I was like, wait a minute, sparkles in outer space, because I see these sparkles in the stream. What are these? And plus I was starting to learn about, you know, matter and energy, and thinking about what I used to anyways think of as the tiny universe. So I wrote a letter to John Glenn. So 5th, 6th grader writing a handwritten letter, which I grew up with many learning disabilities. So my writing was not easy to read. So I really had to sit down and take the time to make the letter legible, first of all. Wrote the letter to John Glenn saying, I'm really wondering, what do you think the sparkles around Friendship 7 were made of? And it was so exciting, you know, for somebody especially who was into science, and I wanted to be an astronaut too at the time. I got this huge manila envelope back with signed pictures, all these like different things about the space program, a letter, I'm sure from his staff, that appeared to be signed by him. It was like my prized possession for years. It was such a fun thing to, again, keep igniting that excitement for science, which I did actually go to school for education. I was a teacher as well for years. And I really felt that was so important to keep the joy and the spirit and the excitement alive in all of these topics. Science was an easy one for me, obviously.
So I want to talk about auras. So this is something that honestly I didn't necessarily believe too much in when I was younger. I thought it was a bunch of foo-foo stuff. Mm-hmm. And when I was in the military, I unfortunately was hit from behind by a rocket-propelled grenade, which caused me to have a traumatic brain injury. And I was in a coma for a couple weeks, and coming out of that, I had weird senses that I had never experienced before suddenly come alive. And it was very much freaking me out because I started to see energy fields and colors and things like that and had no idea what I was experiencing. And I was in my mid-20s when this happened. And I eventually started to do some research on it and found out that what I was seeing was auras. But it was weird, and you and I talked about this the last time, because sometimes I can see them and sometimes I'm unable to see them. And when I'm kind of in the zone of seeing them, and I think it's when I'm most in tune with myself. They're really vivid. And for part of my professional career, it was when I did have the capability, it was a blessing because I was able to very much read people and their emotional state when I was in meetings. But one of the things you talk about is that auras are dynamic, and so that experience I had of them kind of coming and going, sometimes being able to see, because I don't think it's just my energy, it's the other person's energy as well.
Absolutely.
Can you talk about that a little bit and the science behind it?
Yeah, I mean, so the way I define an aura is a biologically generated electromagnetic field. It's made of subatomic particles known as photons, which comprise light, electricity, and electromagnetic force. So we're always emanating this. Even now I'm gesturing, I'm Mediterranean, so I'm gesturing all over the place. I'm speaking, all of this is happening due to the movement of electricity in the body, these photons. And they do have their own electromagnetic field. They're made of force. So in Aura Alchemy, you get a hopefully really fun science lesson in the beginning. But the reason for that is so you understand that photons are force and charge. They don't have any mass, but they are always there. So when we are talking, John and I are talking, we're interacting with you guys, we're all exchanging, emanating these photons. The photons that are moving through our brains are actually what are triggering and potentially even comprise our thought process. So when we're interacting, we're moving in a different way, but either way, photons never stop moving. Electromagnetic force and charge never stops moving. So our auras are so mutable and changeable because we're sitting here, but at the same time, I could be thinking, I'm not, in this case, I'm very comfortable, but I could be thinking, wow, this light is really bright, it's cold, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. So there's this other charge around somebody. So say in a meeting, what a gift, right? To be able to sense in a meeting like that. And definitely story of my life too. Sometimes it's too much. And that's when we have to turn the volume down. But in a meeting, it may give you insight into the state of the other person, and say you're negotiating or something. So yeah, they're always moving, changing. And I'd love to hear, John, is that still common for you all the years after your TBI to see them?
Yeah, it like I said, it kind of comes and goes.
Yeah.
But I remember before I was at Dell, I was at Lowe's Home Improvement, and I remember I'd been working on this huge project, and the way we would get these projects approved is ultimately we would have to brief the CEO and his staff, and the CEO and the CFO would ultimately make the decision. And so I came into this meeting so eager to have this, and then I could just see that the CEO was inflamed in a just bright red.
Yeah.
And for me, alarm bells started coming up that for me to give the presentation in that moment,
it wasn't going to land.
It wasn't going to land at all. And so it was discouraging because I knew I was going to have to punt, but it helped me realize that if I went through, it would have ended up in not the result that I wanted.
Right. So did you not pitch? What did you do?
Well, I still had to pitch, but I pitched it differently. I mean, because my boss was expecting me to pitch.
Sure.
So
you couldn't be like, hey, look at his aura.
So, So I pitched it more, instead of trying to get approval, as instead using it as an opportunity to educate him more about what we were trying to do and lay the groundwork for when we came back.
Perfect.
We would have a better chance of getting it approved, because it was not a tiny project. This was like a $75, $80 million initiative.
Yes. So the perfect case of reading the room.
Yes, and for those who shop at Lowe's, what I was pitching him is what Lowe's now calls My Lowe's, the whole loyalty management program. And at the time, the reason this was so controversial is Lowe's during that era said, we will never have a loyalty program. And so bringing a loyalty program to them under those circumstances was rough as it was, but it turned out we got it launched in a different way from a loyalty program. The person who's the CEO now has turned it into a loyalty program.
But a great opportunity to read the room, sense the energy of the person or people you're interacting with. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you want to know how we ended up selling it?
How?
So at that time, for any fans of NASCAR, Jimmy Johnson was the driver for Lowe's. And we got more information on our customers by Jimmy Johnson's fan club, because there were like 15, 20 million people in it, and we had access to all that information.
Right.
So we sold this as an extension of the Jimmy Johnson fan club, that My Lowe's was a natural extension, and it would feed the bigger NASCAR beast.
Get around the no loyalty program idea, which I'm sure later everyone said, wow, that's a great idea to have a loyalty program.
It was. They just didn't want it to be like going into a grocery store.
Salesy.
And yes, they wanted it to be more customer centric.
Yeah.
But interesting story.
What a fun story where an aura was able to help you ultimately close a business deal.
So I want to get back to science just one second. You say that matter and energy kind of coexist or intertwine.
Yes.
How does that matter, since we're using the word matter, to talking about auras?
Great question. So we'll do a quick but really fun science lesson. So in the land of existence, we have matter, energy, force, and charge. Matter and energy are called, the particles that comprise matter and energy are called fermions. So that means they have mass. So that's, you've heard of protons, neutrons, electrons. Protons and neutrons are also made up of smaller elementary particles, which means the absolute smallest particles, called quarks. But so those quarks, those electrons, the protons and neutrons, all that matter and energy, those are fermions. They all have some mass, even if it's a little bit. You may have also heard of a particle called a neutrino. That is also a fermion, which means it has a little bit of mass. Now on the other side of things, we have bosons. Bosons have no mass. All they are is force or charge. So photons, which are light, are under that category of bosons. Not photons, bosons. So are a bunch of other particles called gluons, something called the Higgs boson, which is the result of something called the Higgs field, which was postulated to have come into existence seconds after the Big Bang, pervades everything, and actually helps through something called the Pauli principle give matter and energy its mass and its heftiness. But those are even bosons. So quick, fun, hopefully not too confusing science lesson. But to go back to auras, our body is made from the mass perspective of matter and energy. So protons, neutrons, electrons. But then these photons, this light and electricity, is running through our body. It's our thoughts. It's causing all of our functions, the involuntary functions like breathing, the way that our heart is pumping blood, that is an electrical charge pumping the heart muscle. Everything is the result of the movement of photons in the body. So because photons are electromagnetic force, they're an electromagnetic field, they emanate out and around our body. A really great example to describe that is if we were to take like the light that's coming through a lamp or the lights above us, if it were to move, that electrical energy and electricity would move through an uninsulated copper wire. It's comprised of electrons, which as we know have a little bit of mass, and photons, which are just force and charge. So if we were to use a copper wire to power that light and have it not have any insulation around it, The photons, which are an electromagnetic force, would travel on the outside of the copper wire. So that's why they're prone to emanating, they're prone to creating a field, because they actually are a field. So we're just a walking charge. We are a field of energy woven through, moving through the matter and the actual energy in our body. We're actually force and charge as far as the aura goes. So hopefully that was a decent explanation. When I try to explain science, I like to keep it easy to understand, but there's a lot of particles involved.
So I understand that you have some cleansing techniques.
Yes.
Is there a cleansing technique that we could have the audience try?
Sure. We can do lots of cleansing techniques. So we can actually do a cleansing technique, and then we could like fill up the empty space too with whatever frequency we want, if we want to try that. We'll see if these are in the book. You'll have to check, because there's I think there's like 20 or 30 techniques in the book. I'm gonna have you use one that will actually get to benefit the space here too. So one of the things we do talk about in Aura Alchemy is, do buildings, spaces, hills, oceans have auras? Is there energy around areas, geographic areas? And a lot of times there is. So we'll also get to maybe benefit the space we're in just by filling it with good energy after. So should we do this?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
I'm up for it if the audience is.
yeah, why don't we do this interactively? So we're going to use an invocation first to make sure everything that happens is for the highest good. So I'll say it aloud, and you could repeat it, call and response, or if you'd like to repeat it in your head, you can, but we may as well say it aloud. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then I'll just take you through the process. So I ask that all that transpires in the entirety of this aura cleansing be for the very highest good of all life and in accordance with universal natural law, helping all and harming none. I ask that I be protected fully during this process. And I welcome the presence of my highest vibrational guides. Okay, so now we have a nice intention. So if you'd like to close your eyes, I can take you through this aura cleansing process. So picture beneath this room, about 3 feet, a sheet of white light. And you can picture it extending out around the edges of the room up to 10 feet. It's a huge sheet of beautiful white light. Picture it there, and it's sort of just gently floating and undulating on a cosmic breeze. This sheet of white light will now begin to raise up, and you can just watch it raise up through the aura area, the charge underneath you, which is your connection to the earth. Watch it raise up through where your feet are, and then up through your legs, through your knees. Watch this sheet of white light moving up through your torso, up through your upper torso, up through your head, and then watch it go up above you, moving up through the space above you, all the way up, till it goes up above the ceiling of this room. And then we'll just watch that bundle into a little ball and go into the sun. We can just watch it go straight into the sun and be transmuted back into pure white light. And so now bring your awareness back into your body and notice how that feels. And if you would like to just popcorn style say a word about how that feels, we'd love to hear that. Light and bright. Free. Clean. Clear. Peaceful and calm. Fulfilled. like an exhale. Anything else? How did that feel, John?
Kind of like took a weight off.
Yeah.
Lighter.
Lighter. It's a real easy way to just clear things out. And then we'll refill now. So a great principle after we clear energy is we may as well fill it with high vibrational energy. And my work as a medical intuitive and just a human, I think of joy as the highest vibration in the known universe. And it's really helpful in medical intuitive work for raising vibration. So again, you can close your eyes and just visualize up above your head, about 5-6 feet, your own individual, beautifully gleaming golden faucet. And this is a joy faucet. And then see yourself turn the faucet on and watch pure white light, maybe it has gold sparkles in it, cascading down through your body, through the top of your head, all around you in a really wonderful stream. Watch it move through your body, feel it move down through your body and out into the earth, out your feet. So you're just being rinsed out, filled up with pure joy. And you can say the word joy aloud after me to heighten that energy. Joy.
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 Good. So, how did that feel? You can tell us popcorn style if you'd like.
Warm, cleansing,
Cleansing, warm,
relaxing,
relaxing.
fulfilling,
Say that one again.
fulfilling.
Fulfilling. How did that feel for you, John?
Joyful.
Joyful, yeah. A great way to uplift the energy of a room is just to repeat the word joy over and over together. And I always feel it like it's kind of coming up through the room. Like it is like, you know, raising vibration, but it sort of feels like an upward energy typically. So there's a little aura cleansing filling up, and hopefully we're all feeling very joyful.
So I'm a big football fan.
Yes.
We got a big game here in town going on right now as
Oh,
we're
do
doing
we?
this. Jets and Bucks,
Aha.
but I'm an Eagles fan, and like many people who watch the Eagles, they saw on the sidelines A.J. Brown, the wide receiver, reading a book called Inner Excellence by this author called Jim Murphy.
Ah.
And I happened to interview Jim last week, and we were talking a lot about perspective, which is something that I study a lot. But
Yes.
as I was reading the book, you also go into perspective and how energy can kind of turn it on or turn it off.
Yes.
And I thought that was really interesting, and I was hoping you could talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. Well, you know, perspective in so many ways. So some of us might be what sometimes we call empaths, highly sensitive people, things like that. So from that perspective, say we go into, for example, go into a space, I could feel bombarded, but I also could take 100% responsibility for my energy, seal it up, fill it with joy, and go in and feel really enlivened. Now, on the other hand, some people have like a personality or a disposition where being in crowds really makes them thrive. And so in those cases, their perspective is, this is awesome, and it's filling me up. So a lot of it is belief, right? It's how we're thinking, and to go back to this idea of auras and electromagnetic fields, it's the way that the photons, which are light and electricity, are moving through our brains and creating our thoughts. And so we're charging our thoughts with whatever our emotions are, whatever our feelings are, whatever our perceptions are, and our perspective. And then that's shaping our experience of reality.
Well, thank you for that. And one of my favorite stories of perspective came from an astronaut, actually. And
Exciting.
Prior to him being an astronaut, he was a Navy SEAL, and he was at BUD/S, and he was talking about Hell Week. And he was just saying that when you're in something like that, there is so much pressure on you that it's so easy to fall into the perspective of I'm never going to be able to make this.
Sure.
And he told me this story that that there was the commanding officer asked them to clean his office prior to Hell Week. And so him and a squad go into it, and on the desk, right in front of him, was the entire manual for what was going to happen for Hell Week.
Oh.
And his first thought was, we should take it, we should understand
we
it,
look
we
at
should
this?
everything. But then his perspective shifted and he said, we're probably being set up here in one way or another. And so he said, we should not touch it. I don't want to have anything to do with it. But two of his people in his squad ended up taking the book, spending the whole night studying it, copying it. And does anyone have a guess what happened the next morning?
It was a completely different play, right?
Well, those two who looked at the book, their perspective shifted so much because they saw what was going to transpire over the next 5 days that they completely psyched themselves out and rang the bell, which means they quit before they even started Hell Week. And Chris just told me that it was this great example
Yes.
of, sometimes knowing
What's coming?
is a worse perspective than being able to handle it moment by moment and being able to deal with the adversity that comes
Absolutely.
one angle at a time or one. And my reason for asking all this is part of the book is really going into mastering success, which to me, when you're faced with a situation like that, like any trying time, it's how do you get yourself in the mental state to realize that trying times are going to end, and no matter how much adversity you might find yourself in, it's a finite
Yes.
stage. And so for me, this intuitive capability has always allowed me somehow to realize that no matter how bad the moment I'm in, there's another side of it that I'm going to get through.
Yes.
I was hoping you might be able to expand on that using the
Yes.
science.
Absolutely. It's belief and it's thought. And I would also say too, with your story, I would imagine for those two people that did look at the manual, they also may have additional perception around, should we have done that? Were we in integrity with ourselves, with our, commanding officer, with the job we were supposed to do? So imagine also how that's affecting their thoughts, another way of psyching themselves out. So in terms of adversity, it's a great question. And when we're thinking about success, if we begin to understand that through our thoughts, through shaping that movement of photons in our brain and throughout our body, we can create a state, whether it's an emotional state, a mental state, an energetic state. If we're going into something or we're experiencing adversity, and of course we're not in, let's say, like immediate danger or something like that, because then of course we have to deal with the situation. But if we're working through something or we're trying to have a certain outcome, we have the power to take charge of our thoughts and even maybe use them to shape our feelings and our emotions, which then shapes our energy. It shapes the way that we interact with the world. People talk about the law of attraction, which is absolutely fantastic, and I mean, totally something that I work with in my life. But it's also about our thinking, our feeling, the state we're creating within us, and then the way that we're interacting with the external world as human projectors. So our thoughts, our feelings, the energetic movement in our body, all of that is going out through this lens of our aura and then projecting out into our external world. So if we've cleaned the lens, we've infused the lens with joy, then we're amplifying. And then if we're, for example, looking for a successful result, something we want to create, we could even infuse our thoughts, our feelings internal, then our auric area, and then let that lens magnify whatever we want. Now, if we're dealing with an obstacle too, we could say, okay, I'm going to take 100% responsibility for myself because I can, and how will I shape my thoughts, my feelings, my external reality from the inside out. And that affects our choices. It affects everything we do. So I think it's also empowering to see and sense and feel that A, we have these fields, and B, we have some ability to affect them. And then that can extend out into our world.
So if one of the audience members here has never experienced an aura, but is wondering if they have the ability,
Yes.
what are some of the initial signs?
It's a great question. So, like I mentioned, dawn and dusk are great times to see that. A really easy way to do that is, especially at dawn and dusk, to even hold your hand up, and so have it where, you have a dusky sky and not a lot of artificial light. And then if you do hold it up, sometimes that's the time when you can sort of unfocus your eyes, and especially to see around the fingers, around the hand. It's an easy way to see. It's a way to start that process. And it's not just about seeing auras, it's about sensing auras. Maybe some people are clairaudient and they hear auras. I tend to have a psychic smell sense. I will smell things before they happen too. All the senses can be involved. The knowing, even a taste might come to you. Those of us who have synesthesia, which I think, John, do you have elements of synesthesia at times from your TBI?
At times.
It sounds like maybe.
Maybe you should explain to them.
Yeah,
what it
so
is.
synesthesia, there's lots of different explanations, but I just think of it as like sometimes my senses mix. So, some people might experience synesthesia, like they look at for me, like I look at a number, but then I get like different metallic tastes and maybe feelings or different things like that. For me, it's especially present with plants, so that's why it's fun for me to use herbal medicine and things like that, because I'll get a lot of input from plants. That's like the medical intuitive side of it. But in terms of seeing, sensing, it doesn't have to just be visual. It can be a color comes to mind, something comes to mind that reminds you of a feeling, a scent, a flower if you're a botanical person. But you can start by looking at the hand in dusk. You can start by noticing, like I mentioned as a child, the aura around plants, especially big trees at dusk, are easy to see. And it's also opening up to that sense. It's also taking like a snapshot, and a crowd passively is a great place to do that, where maybe you're like sitting in the bookstore later and you're just having a tea, and you could just like look at a crowd of people, close your eyes, relax, gently open your eyes, but with an unfocused stare. That's a time where a lot of times it might not be colors, sometimes it's more like movement of energy, or like heat off pavement. When you see that thermal energy moving, that's a way that sometimes an aura will show you it's moving even though it looks a little bit clear. That's a common way I think people perceive auras, because it can be a little bit distracting to walk into, if you weren't prepared for that, say you walked into your meeting and everybody's auras are going nuts, it can be kind of a lot to manage that sensory input. So it can be nice to ease into it and use these techniques, and then the sense begins to grow the more that we notice it and trust it.
So I understand you have something coming up in October.
Yes.
That has to do with atomics.
Yes. So I teach the atomic healing method. I have another Hay House product too that's called the Atomic Element Healing Oracle. So in that, every card is an element of the periodic table and has a healing property and a spirit guide associated with it. And then I also teach the Atomic Healing Method Medical Intuitive Certification, which is a 9-month deep dive into learning how to do what I do. So I used to only teach this to private apprentices. Now this is the 3rd year where I'm certifying people in this method that I've used for 25 years as a medical intuitive. It's a lot of subatomic particles. It's traditional Chinese medicine woven through that, lots of shamanic work. It's just like the biggest joy of my life to get to teach that to my students.
And what's the outcome?
The outcome is you're certified in the atomic healing method, so you can use that from a career standpoint, and you do a lot of medical intuitive work. You go through beginning, intermediate, advanced, expert level work. In this training, you trade a lot with your partners, and then when you graduate, you can use that on yourself, your family, your friends, or some people use that for a career change as well. I have lots of wonderful practitioners. Some of them are came in brand new, and now they're doing these sessions like I would do. And then some of them are adding it to things like their holistic veterinarians, cranial sacral therapists, massage therapists, distance, Reiki healers. So it's another layer to learn from me on the medical intuitive side.
Awesome. Well, I thought I would open up questions to the audience in case any of you had any, and I'm going to just repeat it so we can get it on the podcast if you have one. So if anyone has one, if you want to raise your hand. And Eric, do you have a question?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
John, would you tell us what inspired you to write Passion Struck?
Oh, you want to hear?
I want to hear the origin story of Passion Struck, the book and the podcast.
Well, I can tell you, I never in a million years thought I was going to be doing any of this. I guess I found myself like a lot of people do in life, where you've been doing something for a while, but you feel like the universe is calling you to do something different.
Yes.
And I had been given this vision that I was supposed to help a group of people. The words I were given was the lonely, the helpless, the bored, the broken. And I had no idea who they were. And so I was really struggling with, how do you identify who that group of people are? And eventually I realized I was one of those people. And so once I figured this out, and this all ties to my work around the science of mattering, I realized that I had become really invisible in my own life. And when I say invisible, my priorities were way out of whack. And so I started to really do this inner work, where I started to try to analyze the people that have it or seem to have it all together, and that they are able to change course or to live what I now call a passion-struck life. How are they doing it? And so I started to study anyone I could get my hands on. It started with, because I came from the business space, looking at business executives, but then I started looking at performers and athletes, and then eventually doctors, nurses, just everyday people. And I came up with this set of principles that I started to see come up and up again. And so I went through a period of 2 years of trying these things out on myself. And that became the basis of what's in the book, are the 12 principles. And so So all that research happened before I started the podcast. And so I was thinking of writing this book, and you know what it's like to try to find an agent. So I started to reach out to agents, and all of them said, great concept, but you don't have a platform. And so how do you know that all this stuff that you're talking about is even going to work? And so I decided to start the podcast as a way to test the ideas.
Yes, and thusly create a platform too, because for anyone who's aspiring to write a book, that's always like the big thing.
Yes, I think half the time they care more about your platform than they do the quality of your writing.
I think so. But in your case, the writing's great, and then the podcast has just reached so many listeners, and because we're all asking those questions about meaning. It's a universal thing, I think.
Well, it kind of started, I was looking at more like peak performance, and then I did a shift after the first year of the podcast, more to how do I look at human flourishing in every single possible way that I can, from the aspect of people's personal stories, from talking to health practitioners, to neuroscientists, to behavioral scientists. So I could cover every angle that I possibly can. So if you're not familiar with the podcast, we attack it from pretty much every lens you can think of. I've now gone to doing more of series-based approach, almost like you would see going to a contemporary type of church where they'll cover a series. So the series that we're in right now is kind of deconstructing humanity. And so I've been looking at different aspects of the human experience through my solo episodes and through the people I bring on. So next week,
Exciting.
for instance, I have we're talking about two people's personal stories. I have this gentleman, Joel Beasley, who's coming on, who's actually from Sarasota, moved to Tennessee, but he's going to talk about this major shift in his life that he is pursuing becoming a world-class comedian in improv.
Fun.
So his goal is how do I sell out Madison Square Garden someday? So he's kind of in the first year of this journey, but he's already selling out venues. So we kind of go through his, and then I'm also talking to this woman, Sandy Yaza-Vokic, and she is going to talk about overcoming cancer and some other things, and how she was able to beat the odds. So
Yes.
So just a couple examples. Thank you for asking.
I love the podcast. I love listening to it. I'm excited to listen to both of those too. And in the land of all this wonderful research you've done, if you were going to share with all of us a couple principles around how to live this passion-struck life, what would you say? I'm just turning the questions on you.
So it's interesting, since I just brought up that book, Inner Excellence. Has anyone here read it?
I heard that the story that you told about the
A.J. Brown?
person that was-
Yes.
and then blow up.
So almost the whole thing he talks about in the book, like his big thing is fear, is how do you confront fear? And it's one of the core principles in my book as well. But he ties fear to self-centeredness. And I think that there's an aspect of it, but in the way he lays it out is it kind of starts with our inner world, and then it goes to mindset, and then it goes to your relationships. So your inner world is your beliefs, your values, your mindset. You can think of as the pathway to how you architect your life, and then your relationships are how you connect with others.
Yes.
I thought he had a missing, which I talk about him, I thought he had a missing element, and that is our behaviors. Because I thought you can have all the mindset and inner beliefs that you have, but if you're not intentional, which is what my book is about how you deploy them, it kind of goes.
Absolutely.
I had the same discussion with Angela Duckworth. Like, you can have all the grit in the world, but if you're not intentional about how you're deploying
Yes.
it, you can be pointing it at the wrong thing.
Absolutely.
So in the behavior science world, they don't call it intention, they call it self-control. But it's really kind of the same thing. It's
Yeah.
being intentional is
Yes.
I mean, you can say an intention, but in order to make that intention come to life, it really does take
Yes.
self-control.
Absolutely.
So I would say that, and then another thing he and I talked about that I like to talk about as well is your environment. So your environment plays a huge role in your outcomes. And so in the book, I talk about this whole idea of the mosquito auditor. And I really talk about it in the lens of the people who infiltrate your life. And I came up with this concept, mosquito auditor, because I was trying to think of how do you talk about those things in your life that really deter you from going to where you want to take it. And I came up, and to me, a mosquito is like that because they're so small, you don't really feel a mosquito before it bites you. And so I came up with the invisible suffocator, the bloodsucker, and the pain in the ass are the three mosquitoes I talked about. But those 3 mosquitoes are also the environments that we put ourselves in,
Right.
because those environments can suck the blood out of us.
Yes.
They can make us look at the world like the invisible suffocator does, from a half, glass half full.
Yes.
Or they can become the pain in the asses that are the weights that hold us from what we're achieving.
Yes.
And he was really talking about this in the lens of Jim's a professional, he played for the Phillies organization. He was talking about it in terms of a lot of professional athletes. They let the environment that they're in dictate their outcomes instead of them
Sure.
controlling it. So I would say that environmental aspect plays a huge role
Absolutely.
in shaping the life you want to achieve.
In the intentional living, in the intentional behavior, I think sometimes can overcome an environment that you're finding yourself in as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm big in my own world on conscious and intentional living. That's kind of like a North Star for me, is being clear. So like the clearest one wins. So being clear on what do we want, and that could be physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, anything.
Yeah, it was actually one of your first books.
That's right. I love how you do your research, John.
Yeah. Well, are you guys sure you don't have any
Yes,
questions for me?
What do you want to ask us?
Well, so when you come in a room like this, do you see like little different colors over our heads, like little,
So I turn
So the question is,
Yes.
when you come into a room like this, do you see colors around the people's heads who are in the room? And I can tell the answer is no, but I'll let her answer
I
it.
turn it off.
That's my idea of what works.
So when I go into I always turn that off. And it's actually a rote thing for me, definitely into airports, grocery stores. When I walked in here, I don't even think about it anymore. I just seal up and turn it off. Now, if I wanted to, I could leave it open, but it'd be kind of like going, especially this isn't a huge crowd, but say you go to the airport, it's kind of like, imagine you go in there, but everybody's energy is screaming at you what they're feeling. It's kind of a lot. So sometimes I still do, even when I turn it off though. John, do you? How is it for you?
Well, I have to turn it off because it causes me to get migraines.
Exactly. That's the other
because
piece.
it becomes so,
Yes.
you can get sensory overload.
Yes.
But as was mentioned at the beginning, I have a children's book coming out. Never in a million years thought I'd write a children's book.
I can't wait for it.
But where I'm going with this is I have had to do far more with illustrations than what I realized when you write a children's book is you have so little words to play with that you have to tell so much of the story through the illustration.
Yes.
But where I'm going with this ad is you can use light in different ways to showcase even a character in a children's story.
Yes.
And so I've been playing a lot with light with the illustrator on how
Yes.
we want to make Luma shine.
Shining.
So that shining effect that you see on an image in an illustration like that is kind of how I would say I see auras. So it's not like a color like sitting on, it's kind of like an energy field.
Yeah.
Is how I perceive it. Is that how you?
Yeah, I perceive it as movement around somebody, and also often like the feelings that they might be feeling, or especially, it's probably heightened if I might be feeling those feelings too. But so there's energetic movement, there's an emotional component for me. If the switch is on, absolutely color, texture. I talk about that quite a bit in the book. Like I have a really extensive medical intuitive color chart in there, like the way I actually think of it. But texture's a big thing for me too. And also like if a field is fully inhabited or not as well. So like, I think, for example, John and I sitting here, I think we're both probably conscious of we're talking to all of you, so we need to be really present. So like really inhabiting our auras. But there are times when things are wispy or the textures are different. That's something I tend to perceive too. But Yeah, I think if we leave those senses on all the time, it can be a lot. I too am prone to headaches, and I think that's part of why when we have that type of intuitive sensitivity.
So how do you turn it on and off?
So the question is, how do you turn it on and off?
Yeah, I actually do like picture a dial where I'll turn the volume down. I also use a technique which actually I could take everybody through. It lets in, whatever's for your highest good, but it seals you up as far as what else is around. So maybe we can just do that, because you may as well try it. So it's another invocation style thing that you say aloud. So you can, if you choose, you can repeat after me. This is literally what I did in my head as we were walking in today. I seal and protect.
I seal and protect
All wormholes,
all wormholes,
portals, doorways, and openings
and openings
in my physical
in my physical
and etheric bodies,
and etheric bodies,
in all dimensions,
in all dimensions,
and all interdimensions,
in all interdimensions,
and all realities,
and all realities,
as needed for my highest good.
as needed for my highest good.
And you can kind of see it like just sort of swirl around you. And then you're just kind of sealed up. So if I want to look, I can, but I won't get bombarded. How did that feel for everybody? Sealed? Yeah. Yeah. How did that feel for you?
As far as how I close,
Uh-huh.
like
Yeah.
I do it a little
How do
bit.
you do it?
Well, for anyone who's followed me, I speak pretty openly about some of the mental health issues I've experienced, and sometimes I have to tune it off because it it activates my past trauma response,
Sure.
and so I just kind of like picture myself closing it down.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
closing that. It's almost
Yeah.
like I just imagine myself turning the sense off
Mm-hmm.
in my head, and it allows it to narrow
Just
and
kind of-
eventually go away.
Yeah. Sometimes I think people will see as like zipping up or things like that. It's really whatever works for you. It's to let you have the visceral experience and the knowing that it's occurred, and the intention is really the key thing.
Well,
Like
absolutely.
everything else. Yeah.
You were talking earlier about trees.
Yes.
So it was funny that happened to me this morning. I was outside my backyard, and behind, I don't have houses. It's just like basically a farm, and it has a lot of trees.
Mhm.
And it was just the trees and no clouds. So all of a sudden, I started seeing like on top of the trees, like a big field. Like
Yes.
so was that what you were talking about?
Yes.
I just like, I'm like, wait a minute, is it early? But through the whole line of the trees.
Yay.
And then the birds started. I was like, so I just thought that it was so funny that you were talking about something like that, and I just saw it.
Well, since you just brought that up, I mean, I love to walk. I go for a walk very early in the morning, like 5:30 in the morning, and
Such
I love
an early riser.
I love the darkness. I love that time of day. But I can often, when I am seeing this, it's interesting that you bring that up because the other animals can feel it too.
Yes.
And I notice when you, like, and sometimes even if I'm looking at the moon and the planets are around it, I can feel it. And often at that time when it's reverberating is in the early morning when you hear birds
Yes.
and other wildlife the most loudly, because I think they're picking it up too.
Absolutely.
So I have a question. So because I don't know, the way I understood what you're saying is that depending on how we're feeling on or what we're thinking, then the photons or something different, and so this is the different aura. But I mean, the trees, they are not thinking, correct? They are not thinking. They are not. I mean, I think they feel. I don't know how it works, but what I'm saying is that then they would always have like a very clear aura, correct? It's like,
That's a great question. I'll paraphrase. Do you want me to for the podcast?
Yeah, that would be great.
So she asked how we were discussing that for the podcast, how we were discussing that our thoughts and our feelings would affect a person's aura, but a tree isn't thinking. So yes, exactly what you said. That's why they have such a clean, clear, just presence. There's not really any staticiness there. You know, it's the rooted being, a living being, absolutely, but this rooted living being just, you know, enlivened with the same thing, movement of photons. And I mean, I think there's a certain neutrality to trees. I've always thought of trees as my friends personally since I was a kid, but you know, a neutrality to that. So there is a cleanness to that aura, which, speaking to your point, it makes it easy to see. It's also a safe thing to see. It's not going to bombard you with somebody's feelings or emotions, and it's big too if it's a tree. So that's why it's such a great place to look for auras. And yeah, a nice, clean, clear, you know, natural, also biologically generated aura. We all tend to have, you know, phones and stuff on us nowadays, which is great. Don't get me wrong. I love our phones, but that does interfere or does contribute too. But a tree, probably not. So it's nice and easy to see, and usually gives us a good feeling too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In the back.
So this might be a little sideways. I have a friend who sees dead people, and like we did a girls trip to Savannah,
Yes.
and she said she really had to shut it off
Yeah.
because in Savannah
Yeah.
the dead are really alive there.
Yeah.
But I never really asked her what does she see. She said like sometimes she'll be like in a coffee shop or a donut shop and
Yeah.
someone will
Yeah.
tell that person
Yeah.
her relative, you know, wants to talk to the person in front of her.
Yes.
But I
Yes.
didn't really like get into what she sees, how
Great question.
how they talk to her.
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe I haven't talked to anybody who
So
like that.
right. So this woman asked about, she has a friend who sees dead people, and in Savannah it was especially pronounced. I've also seen dead people most of my life. It's another thing you absolutely can turn off, turn down. I kind of have a policy, no dead people in the house. I have to stay outside. And there are definitely places that are older places like that where a lot has happened, where I'm generally guided not to go. There's a place in Everglades City like that I actually don't even go in. There's a lot of spirits who haven't gone to the light yet in that area. Yeah. So, you know, there's I've actually never gone to New Orleans for that reason. I've had a lot of opportunities to go to New Orleans. And from a guide standpoint, it's always been like, well, you can go, but it's going to be a lot of sealing up because there's a lot happening there. So, yes. And for someone who does have that experience where, you know, spirits who haven't gone to the light yet have something to say, or spirits who maybe have and are still trying to communicate, everybody needs to remember that you have the power of consent or non-consent. So if that's disruptive for your friend, she can close that down and say, you know, it's only available between the hours of, you know, 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. and when she's outside. I personally, just like I said, I have a policy of no dead people in the house, unless maybe they're like an ancestor I'm specifically working with. And I'm, you know, you can state that you're not available for that all the time, because that's another thing that can get overwhelming.
So can I just ask a
Yes.
follow-up on that?
Yes.
So if you're interested in going deeper into this, I've had this discussion on the podcast with Rebecca Rosen, Dr. Lisa Miller, Susan Grau, who's another
Yes,
Hay House
Hay
author,
House.
Gabby
Mhm.
Bernstein.
Yep.
But what they have described, at least some of them, is that what their spirits have told them is that we're living in some sort of the word they use is earth school.
Sure.
And what we are supposed to be doing is we have, the way they describe it is we have come down with a specific set of things that we are supposed to learn in this lifetime. And I'm paraphrasing here, but what I've kind of been told is that when we are learning them, our life is kind of going in the direction it should, and things seem to be going well. And
Yeah.
but when we are resisting, or when we're not learning the lessons we are, that's when some of the darker moments happen and we feel more pain in our life. Have you experienced any of that?
I think that's a great way to put it. When we're not, on our dharmic path or things like that, we can be resisting that. And when people do choose to avoid, numb, all these different things, it definitely can bring that darker energy in. When we are choosing to live intentionally in a high vibrational way, and I think also having a greater meaning. I mean, that's a big part of what you talk about too. But if we do have a meaning, whether it's service or, the love we have for our families, whatever that might be, it can help us stay on. I kind of think of it as like a green line that is like the life's blueprint, the right path. Absolutely, we have free will. Absolutely, we can upgrade that as well. But if we do stay on that, things could potentially go in a lighter direction. So I think where you might be going with that too is about spirits who've crossed over. Was that going to be your next question? Yeah. So, my view is we all do choose to incarnate for whatever reason in what we're experiencing. Why that is, I've certainly asked hundreds, if not thousands, of spirit guides. I've talked to many people's deceased relatives over, 25 years as a medical intuitive. The why of it, we're all trying to figure out. A lot of times, spirits from the other side will say it's about love, and they'll show me like love between soul groups. And that's why, souls will incarnate, like soul families will incarnate to keep experiencing that love that they have for each other. But in terms of, if a spirit hasn't gone to the light yet, I've seen over the years too, sometimes they're confused. So one of the first times that happened to me, I was probably about like 22. And I mean, I had sensed spirits before, but I had a boyfriend who, his best friend, who I knew well, died of a drug overdose. And so we had, only found out that week, and he'd been down in the Virgin Islands. So it was like a whole process. They had to bring his body back, and, it was a big thing. And my boyfriend had a job in construction, so he got up real early. So the alarm went off, and it was, say, like 4:30 or something. So he left and went to work. But he hit snooze instead of turning it off. So he's gone, then I got up, and I'm, in my nightie or whatever, and I was like really out of it. I was kind of aggravated, like turning the, back when your alarm wasn't your phone. So like it was like a bigger thing with the red numbers, those of us who are old enough to experience that. So I go and turn it off, and to the side of me, I hear like laughter. And I kind of look over, and it was the spirit of his friend who hadn't completely figured out that he was dead, but he knew something was different. So he'd been following around his friend. And I looked at him and said, "What are you doing here?" Or something, because I was kind of still half asleep. And he was sort of like, "Oh, you can see me." So that ended up being a process. I taught preschool at the time. I was a preschool and kindergarten teacher. So that ended up being a process where I said, "You can't come to school with me, so you're gonna stay here in this kitchen," because he wasn't quite ready. And I said, "You can go visit whoever you want, do not follow me to school. I can't have him around the kids. Stay here in the kitchen. When I get back from work, we're gonna figure this out." It gave him some time to, I think, process that he had exited, because it was such an abrupt exit, he didn't really understand. So then eventually I was able to say, you have the option to go to the light, which is what I would recommend. And in shamanism, we call this psychopomp work. but it's, you know, kind of like visualizing, like opening up a portal to pure white light, whatever you'd like to call that. And then it's the spirit's choice. And he did eventually go, but I feel like I sort of like sat at the kitchen table with him that night for quite a few hours, because it was kind of like, yeah, you left your body, here's what happened. He just didn't know, because it was such an abrupt exit in consciousness. And I think it was a combination of alcohol and barbiturates. So I think it probably was like sudden, but also like sleepy, you know? So that might be an interesting answer to the question too, as far as, you know, spirits go to the light in so many different ways. I've seen deceased relatives of clients over the years who just the minute they exit, they go straight to the light. Either way, when the soul goes to the light, it has the opportunity to release whatever amount of the identity it chooses. And then sometimes souls come back as spirit guides, and then they're in a highly vibrational space as well.
What happens to the aura when you die?
It's a good question. So it is an extension, a biologically generated electromagnetic field. So some of that would go away as the literal light drains out of the body. But then we have this question of consciousness. What are these particles of consciousness of the soul that do exit the body but continue? I'd like to scientifically figure that out. I have a lot of conjecture on that in the Aura Alchemy book as well.
So, Amy, if people wanted to learn more about you, where is the best place for them to go other than going downstairs and buying your books?
Come get a book. We have copies here of Aura Alchemy, a little bit of mindfulness, a little bit of goddess. My website is my name, amyleighmercree.com. You can find everything there. That's also my Instagram handle. If you want to say hi to me on Instagram, I'd love to see you there.
And I can tell you, she's one of the rare influencers who's on Instagram that you're actually talking to her if you send her a message.
It's usually me, yes.
Well, Amy, thank you so much for coming, and Oxford Exchange, thank you so much for having me.